Hello, my friend. I hope you're having an outstanding day. This is Heather. Welcome back to the Back to Me podcast. I feel like I should have an announcer voice when I do that. And today is yet another fabulous human being who, this is why I do these podcasts, because I get to talk to some really super people with so much knowledge and wisdom. And I just love it. So today, yet another fabulous human being. I'm talking to Lori Wallace, who is the founder of Career Ecology, but so many more things than that, really, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Living bee. I'm a living bumblebee is what I
A living bumblebee. Science would say you can't fly, but there you are.
I really am. And there's a distinction between a bumblebee and a honeybee. I don't know if you or your listeners know this, but a honeybee, which I would love to be anyways, because I admire them, but they, go out into the garden and they can pollinate every plant. So it's sort of like they say a Vegas sort of buffet, and they're all over the place. But those big, juicy black ones, the real furry guys, they do buzz pollination. So what that means is they go to the particular plant that their anther, they have all the pollen inside, whereas in the buffet, the anther's on the outside. So you see, all that dust that comes off of lilies or flowers that you put into your garden. The buzz pollinator goes to the plant where the pollen is hidden in the anther. And so the bumblebee latches, and then it takes its wings and it buzzes them, and it creates a frequency that uniquely aligns with that particular plant. And so it hears the sound and it releases its pollen. So it's this frequency connection. Isn't that so great?
That's crazy.
I love it. I love the idea of matching your frequency to the landscape in front of you in your world. And I think as a career ecology, what I'm doing with people with work all the time, everyone's looking for that meaning, that frequency match. They don't want to be mismatched. So it says, you can be a honeybee, but really we all striving to be a bumblebee. Truly.
That's amazing. Oh my God. What a segue.
I know. It is. Perfect.
So unexpected.
Yeah. I always think about nature everywhere.
Right? Well, I mean, career ecology, obviously there's nature in the name of your company. Yeah. But before we dive into that, and I know some of this and we've kind of alluded to it. So what created career ecology? How far back down the road do you want to go? Like, what brought you to this place in the road?
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for asking that. And I know that it's often asked so we can know someone's story, but I heard something recently when I'm listening to my tape right now of Anti-Career by Rick Jarrow. And he says, let me tell you my story because I want you to know the origin of what all of this work and service originates from. And I thought that's really helpful. So it's like the seed. So the seed, where's this come from? And, I'm just going to take us just gently back to 36, even though obviously before the age of 36, I'm 58 now. Before 36, there was a whole host of stuff that led up to this moment. But really, I was Lori pre-36 and Lori post. It was a significant kind of death of ego, almost death of my own body and life, because I was 8 months pregnant. And the phone rings incessantly at 6 o'clock in the morning on September 11th, 2001. And I'm in San Francisco, right? This is the day. I wasn't in New York, but I'm in San Francisco. I answer the phone. Sister-in-law says, turn on the television immediately. And I see the first tower burning. And I'm devastated thinking, what a horrible accident, As I'm watching it, we all witnessed the second tower. And we realized this wasn't an accident. And I instantly went into labor. And, when I talk about spirit and kind of animals and sort of, symbology, we started off with the bumblebee. I realized at that moment, I am an animal. My body went into a process like possum, where my body said, okay, we got this baby that maybe if we push it out, it could live, but everybody's got to run. This is really, really scary. And so
emergency.
Take this baby out and run. It's just better than being this big, going places. And he takes me to the emergency room. There were so many women in there, Heather. All of us were in labor. And by the doctors, because we're all just freaking out. So I managed to get in the proper meds, came back and kept my baby in to term. However, I was then laid off from my job because I was working in in banking, financial services, and my company went through a recession. And then one day I had a little sip of some orange juice or whatever it was, and I went to head to toe hives, and I had an autoimmune complete collapse. Every system went haywire. So I'm not working. I have bumps and swollen eyes and pus and everything everywhere. A new baby who's suckling that I'm afraid maybe I'm giving him something. I have no job, and I'm worried about the world that I'm bringing my son into. So this was a moment. We had to leave our home too. We couldn't pay our mortgage. So we went to go live with my parents for 3 months at the age of 36.
Eek.
And none of the doctors, allopathic medicine was not helping me at all. This is when I started to wake up to, compliance. Maybe I should actually be self-reliant. I should ask questions of doctors. I should ask questions of anyone in sort of a leadership role, or anyone that I've just always sort of bowed down to or complied with. And so I started with my naturopathic medicine journey for the first time. Prior to that, I never questioned anything I ate, anything that I was told. I was just a compliant woman.
Right.
Now I have to start with 4 times a week acupuncture using the money that we took out of the home. It was very expensive, but it saved me because I had complete adrenal exhaustion. So here's what's going on. So this is a total collapse. And I know I had to get back to work. I'm the primary breadwinner. My husband was out of work, but he's the cynic and I'm the optimist. So I'm the one who has to get it together. And my husband's like, well, what are you going to do? What should we do? And I said, aha, I need to practice radical kindness. And he's like, and that's a career path? And I said, yes, it is. It's the only thing I can think of right now that's important and matters in this moment. So I ended up getting recruited to be a recruiter by my recruiter. It was a complete triple whammy, and picked my family, moved them to Oregon, became a recruiter, took a pay cut from $180,000 to $40,000, and started to try to practice this. But Heather, I can tell you, I was miserable.
And a kid, and you got a baby
who I did stop breastfeeding and wept. I was a primal cry when I pulled him off the breast at just, basically a couple months, and it's not what either one of us wanted, but I felt it was necessary. And I'm thinking, how am I going to survive this? I want to be a mom I had arthritis in every joint. I mean, everything was just on fire. And I thought, I'm going to be in a wheelchair. I'm not going to be able to move. This is bad. But when we moved to Oregon and I started on the path that really was destined, and I realized that I didn't like working for another recruiting firm because they were a sales firm and they were manipulating their clients and their professionals. So I started my own recruiting firm in 2005 to transform headhunting into human connection. And I flooded it specifically and intentionally with feminine values of patience, neutrality, service, compassion, and love. This wasn't something you really saw in recruiting. I almost didn't get the job with the first firm because I scored too high in empathy.
Uh-oh.
That was a problem with that.
She's too nice. We can't be having her.
Right. So I had to do it my own way. And it was lovely, beautiful experience, had expansive. I work with large health systems like Cedars-Sinai and Sutter Health and UCSF and really big, beautiful organizations. But then 2016 came and we all collectively fell into culture, COVID, climate crisis, all of it. And I felt just this overwhelming feeling that, it was awakened to me really from a podcast and a live also meeting that I had with a group of people with Michael Meade. Do you know him as the podcaster, the mythologist?
No, I don't know that one.
So he is a mythologist, a wonderful story. He's probably in his 70s now. So he's just got decades and decades. Worked too with Joseph Campbell and, many of these people that are studying, the hero's journey and all the myths and archetypes. And so he's talking about these changing times. And one of the things he said, please, to anyone that hears me. And so I guess I'm now actually sending it aloft again. Yep. The message is, if you have the opportunity and influence to help others to find their authentic self, to move into a state of empowerment, do it, bring it. We need a world right now where everyone is in their authentic genius. If we continue in a world where we have people that are desperately split from self, just depressed, depleted, then we're in a position where we're not in like a dynamic ecosystem at all. We're really in this hierarchy where we have those that know how to kind of feed off of others that don't have their power and don't really know how to direct their life or take care of themselves if they're falling apart or going through changes. And I heard that and I said, well, that's the position I'm in as a recruiter. I work with people constantly in between jobs. And this is when I realized truly, truly job change and being in between work is a hero's journey. It is
Right.
full of so much suffering. You can think about the hero's journey, and classically, someone that enters into one, according to the fairy tales, is thrust out into the dark woods, and there are these glowing eyes looking at them at night. And do they have the horse that they need, or the Excalibur? Do they have the magic? Do they have the courage? And as a recruiter, I have listened to hundreds and hundreds of people weep over a toxic boss, or even just being uninspired, feeling like they can't get out of bed to get to work. I've even had one client who was murdered by their employee.
What?
Out during the Great Recession. Do you remember that time, how there were a lot of shootings going on and there were some murders and death? People were out of their mind, afraid of, I think we felt it at an energy level, even different than COVID. There was this onslaught of an immediate danger in the world that had the entire eco or economic system, here I go to eco again always, but the economic system, had it come crashing down, we
Well, I
would,
remember so many people, their mortgages were worth more than their homes. Like everybody was underwater, and
yes,
so many people were thrown into these weird, desperate situations. I mean, in the 20s, people were killing themselves. During those times, I guess they took
yeah,
another tactic.
they
Right? I
did.
mean,
Yeah.
that emergency thing is strike out instead of, offense instead of defense. I don't know how I would even phrase that, but
I
it's so
know.
hard for people, right? I've been in that position where I'm talking to recruiters who are saying, we're going to bring you to this job and this is what you're going to say and this is what they're looking for. I'm like, okay, never questioning whether it's the right position,
Right.
right?
And they were putting words in your mouth and telling you how to show up. So now, according
Yeah,
to Gabor Mate, or some of those that are speaking up about trauma right now, they're saying any moment that you are unable to show up authentic as you are being traumatized. So
mm,
that very first moment of trauma that I think any of us feel in a way is this feeling of like, I've got to separate from self. I'm not even going to show up for myself. So, men come into this world and they're said, you're not allowed to feel or be sensitive. We're going to go ahead and kick you out of the boys club if you show any of those sissy feelings. You can
yeah,
imagine that innate, it's like a very inside experience of disassociation and of rejection of one's own feelings, you
right.
know?
Big boys don't cry,
No,
right?
that is a devastating trauma that I would say almost every man goes through because of because of our world society, because of masculinity.
Yeah,
And, women, other ways too, is like, well, we're told we can feel, but if you bring that to the working world, well, then, you're really useless and you're really weak. And what value do you really bring? You're just soft, you're just a woman, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And there's so many other ways that we're constantly disassociating from self and maybe even saying, things about ourselves to ourselves in our internal language. And I know that recruiters, traditional, conventional recruiters and job coaches, I don't think they're really consciously aware that they are adding on to that when they
mhm,
say to someone, all right, I'm going to prep you for an interview. And the whole point is for you to win. So here's what they're looking for. So you're an introvert. That's okay. You got to show up though. We're going to practice your extroversion. We're going to call this out. Here's what they need. Here's what you have to be like. And if you mess this up, you might not get the job. So you go to the interview and something slightly happens that throws you off from your performance. I've had actually people even forget altogether practically what they do and what their name is. You can have a moment of a blackout.
right? It's like, what was
Right?
I supposed to say? Oh no.
Right. And you can just be struck dumb in a way because it's like, this is not natural. I don't know how to respond to this. And I can tell that they're realizing too that this is not even authentic, that they're picking up that I'm performing. And so
Well,
people
but
leave.
if you do perform well and you get the job, that's they didn't hire you, they hired your performance,
100%. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you have to keep performing. Keep
And then
performing.
you get more and more unhappy.
Yeah. And more traumatized, you know?
But
Yeah.
the hero's journey, at some point on the hero's journey, doesn't a guide appear? Dun, da, da, cue music.
Yes. I would say too, often we think about these heroes that even in modern day that are going up Everest, or climbing a peak. They have a Sherpa, they do. And they may have a guide. They may have a spirit guide. They may have an animal, an owl, something shows up, a dream, a North Star. So we are communal animals, prior to our figuring out that we actually are predators, that we have the capacity to hunt and to kind of rule the world. Humans were initially prey, and we were eaten at 10% of the herd, just like zebras.
Oh my gosh.
10%. I know. So walking around, getting into the cave at night, making sure, that we're trying
Oh,
to live
sorry,
together.
wrong cave.
I know, right? Making sure. So different, such a different time. And so this, trying to find that courage and what are the tools? What is the navigation that we need in between jobs? And the thing is, when you are out of work and looking for new work, it's very liminal and you're definitely feeling very, very lost. Sometimes you can kind of question whether or not anything you did was ever of any value and if anybody's going to ever hire you again.
Well, and
So
there's also that fear, the scarcity fear, like the sometimes very real financial fear of,
very,
um, I've got to eat, I need a roof, I have a
yeah,
family to feed,
yeah,
that's forcing you or making you feel forced into a corner.
yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because this is very psychological.
Mhm.
This is the kind of thing that is primal. It's pinging on all sorts of very primal motivators and fears. So the fear of being able to eat, take care of your family, obviously survival. The one of being ghosted, because you put out an application, you interview, no one ever replies back. That's also very primal because if you are not communicated with or excommunicated from your clan or your cave, then you're basically dead meat, out there. So the interesting thing is that our technical world is advancing much faster than our nervous systems. So we still emotionally respond as if we're back at that little clan that's got 10%, 10% are gone, every so often. So I think we need to recognize, that's why I say to people, there's a lot of trauma here and that it is a hero's journey is deeply, deeply psychological. And when you can awaken a new navigation system, which I think is the trajectory for human beings. We are moving from animal to an animal with consciousness and a brain with an understanding of an existential world to an animal with technology that could blow up the planet. What's next? Where do we go? Because with all of this animalism in combination with this ego, in combination with this intellect and technology, it's either going to go towards a bad end and a lot of violence and destruction, or we recognize that we can ascend higher than the animal ego and the fear of dying, and that we can, in that ascendance, in that moving up, that we can open a new navigation system where we come into a relationship with chance, where we can live in almost like a Buddhist sense of no attachment to the outcome. We think about some of the peoples that are still very, very in tune with their own beautiful navigation system that's in tune with the energy of the world, and that's like the Aboriginals in Australia. They
Right?
walk thousands of miles, tuned to their own navigation and the navigation of just the energy and the stars. And I think in the Western world, that's just turned off. It's almost like we have some sort of lead blanket around us, and it's just,
Well, imagine trying to get somewhere if you didn't have Google Maps. I mean,
oh my
I
God.
can't we can't even get to the city next door, forget 1,000 miles through the
Oh,
desert.
I
I
know.
mean,
I don't even, you remember the Thomas Guide?
I had a McNally road maps in my car. Actually, I
Oh, that's
still do in case the system goes down, but,
brilliant. I don't, but I'll need that with really, really good readers. I don't even know
right,
how anybody read those back then. So the whole concept is, if you're in a hero's journey, you better awaken a navigation system. To your point before, wasn't there a helper? So the helpers are all around us. It really is in that power of attraction. It's in, like, if you go to bed one night and you just say, I'm open, I want to change in my work. I need something different. And if you just leave that last thought with, I'm open to the guidance, and then go to sleep, you've now opened up the channel to say, I realize this is not only my doing. I'm open to something magical or some sort of chance meeting. And then the next day, you might hear something, just through, I'm going to say radio, through your phone.
Do
Oh my
people
gosh,
listen
I'm
to
just
the
going back
radio?
and like, radio.
They
But
still
you'll
listen to the
hear,
radio, don't they?
don't they? It's there still. But all of a sudden you start to recognize clues and things start to click or come together. That's why one of the things that I do teach through career ecology in the area of activating networking is, hey, folks, get out there and join at least 2 local associations or networking groups, hopefully ones without a membership fee because you're probably a little strapped for cash. But get out there and just start asking questions and meeting people, because now chance can have its way with you. If you're at home all the time, it's not going to happen.
Well, and the other
Right?
thing that we realized with the whole COVID land was how much we actually do need interaction with other people. So if someone is out of a job and they're used to being in an organization, so now they're alone and they're sitting at home, and maybe they have family going, what are you doing? Are you going to get a job? And maybe they're just sitting home alone wondering, what the hell am I going to do now?
Yeah.
So I feel like actually getting up, getting dressed, putting on something nice and going to a meeting. First, you get to actually interact with people in real life again. And then that opens up those doors. I mean,
Yeah.
during all that online stuff, I mean, I went to so many online networking meetings, but it's true. I like how you said, local ones, because you can go to as many as you want online and there's people from all over the world, which is cool.
So cool.
But is that going to help you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Coming back to local, that's the thing that the internet, it has opened up. You and I are talking because, thank goodness, we're in 2
Yeah.
different countries. It's so gorgeous. But what's been missing is that connection back to the local. And I'm starting to recognize there are organizations like local magazines. We've got a San Diego magazine here, the libraries, they're all saying, we have these experiences, maybe a book club, or maybe come and make your vision board, because the libraries have all these free magazines that are donated to them. So it's really fun. You can go and do things like that. So I'm starting to ask the questions and figuring out, how can these local organizations get their messages out to their community so that we all know what's there, because we're all used to still that separation. Even Meetup, which is so great, can feel sometimes really vast and really big. So how do you get your world? How do you create a local taproot, where you can kind of spread out your mycelium, you can get your connections. So just starting with a couple of those groups. Just this morning before I joined you, I was at a coffee date with a group of women from the National Association of Women Business Owners. It's called NABO. And they decided to meet in North County. We all sat down, we told our stories, and we actually said to you, what's your ask? What does everybody need right now? We could have gone on for 5 or 6 hours. I think there was just an absolute hunger for that. So I'll always head out and go, whenever I can. So it's a big part right now of career ecology, but that external connection needs to be matched with that internal connection. And boy, talking about from birth again, we're sort of separated. You must be this. This is what your expectation is. This is how you fit into this box as man or woman or anything else. And so part of this process of an internal gaze, we have this thing we talk about, the Western gaze. Camille Paglia, she wrote this Sexual Persona. She wrote this book. She talks a lot about the Western eye. Women are getting all sorts of surgeries all the time just to look good enough, not enough. There's a certain way we're supposed to look now versus the Twiggy days or whatever it is. There's so much of this external gaze, but the internal gaze, oh my gracious, this is hard for people. So one of the first things we do in career ecology is this thing I call the responsive resume. But Heather, before I called it responsive resume, you know what it really is? It's a feng shui resume.
What?
I know. And people, not everybody understood what that was. Feng shui to me is, if I move into a new home, I will spend days and days kind of frantically moving the furniture around until I feel that the area and that all the furniture in the area is conductive for energy and love and prosperity. And so resumes are the same way. So think about it. The traditional linear resume is such an artifact from the industrial age. It's like, all right, condense yourself to 1 page if possible, 2 max. Do it in a linear way. Now I can compare widget to widget. That's really
Right.
what it's been. Now here we are in the electronic world where you don't have to keep it to 1 to 2 because you have multiple electronic pages, so you don't have to worry about that. But we still have all of the classic resume writers using the linear. I have read thousands of resumes as a recruiter, and I can tell you the first thing that happens, I'm going to get my little prop. I get out my little pencil. I literally will even print it, and I'm counting months and days. I'm circling and drawing up. I'm opening a browser to understand I am constructing this person's story. We don't want people doing that.
Right.
We want to construct our story. This is our responsibility, and it shouldn't be taken away from us. And we don't want to give it away. So this idea of this responsive resume is I have this format that has this top executive summary page with all these back pages. But here's the thing. People have to write it on their own according to the structure and my support. And let me tell you, every single person struggles mightily. The idea of doing your own resume, it's the worst thing. Nobody wants to do it. It's
And it's
it's like
such a different way to do it.
so different. They're like, first of all, like, I can't write. Okay, yes, you can. You can even write it the best you can and then just take it and throw it into Chat GPT and say, go ahead and fix any of my little issues with grammar. So you got your editor right there. But
Right.
the structure that I have in being very feng shui, your story now is yours to share and to shape and to form and to offer. So you're saying to the reader, here's me and my summary, and then here's where I've been, here's my career path, here's my functional. So you can see these are my functional strengths. Here's over here too, all my competencies, and here's 3 very rich impacts. Boom, you got me in 1 page. It is incredibly empowering. And I had one gentleman who just finished his. It took him 4 months. Doesn't usually take that long.
Whoa.
4 months.
Yeah.
And he is a former executive over a multinational firm, very high level, very successful gentleman. He finished this and he said, Lori, I kid you not, this was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Pay
Isn't that
attention.
crazy?
Crazy. But I get it.
Yeah. I can remember this was a long time ago, 1997. I moved from Halifax to Toronto, and I did a resume similar to what you said because I was an accountant, and I said, I don't like the accountant resumes because at heart, I'm an artist. So I made this beautiful resume that I felt was just like, this is what you need to know about me. And the recruiter sent it back to me and said, no, you need to redo it. I'm like, but I like this one. They wanted the experience this day, this day, this day, this day titles, that old fashioned one. I thought, okay, well, I guess I'll do it your way. But
didn't that feel, yeah, right there. So there you go. So you had to take yourself and you had to put it into a box that felt smaller. And so what, I realized that the good news was this responsive resume design is it looks traditional. So,
ooh, even better.
oh yeah. So we still do all of that, like, Miyagi stuff, and we still make it our own. And you can even put a little feather at the top if you want, because it's not too much in the way. Like one resume I did, she wanted a little flourish, and it still looks traditional. So it does not trigger somebody's ego or fear of change.
Right.
It 100% allows for that individuality to come through. So yeah.
You have a lion on your desk. I can hear him.
You know something? I asked them to stay in the front yard. Yeah. Isn't this funny? It's not
That's
happening.
hilarious.
I explicitly did ask.
So you are the guide for these heroes of their own journey. And I
Yes.
think about all of these heroes, like all of the movies. I mean, in the movies, everybody ends up figuring out that they are the hero, but they have to fight against themselves for so long before they will just step up and own it.
Yeah.
So hopefully that when they finally come to you, they realize, no, it's time for me to own my awesomeness and just step up. It's all right. It's real life. This is real life, friends.
It is real. I also kept my Labrador out, to make sure that he wouldn't bark at anybody in the backyard. It'll be over in a sec. What you just said was really poignant. the idea of dissing ourselves and abandoning ourselves and rejecting ourselves is so pervasive. It's so part of our everyday life. It's so expected in order for our system right now that is very exploitative to work, that when anybody says, hey, let's go ahead and spend some time talking about you. Like, I remember when I actually first went to therapy, I went with my husband for some marriage counseling. It was something I think every couple should do. It's a very loving act. And at one point, my therapist said, keep in mind, I'm the one who's always, optimistic and sunshiny, and my husband's the curmudgeon, and he's cynical, and he gets, impatient. And so we had been to a couple therapists, and most of them say, John, you need to count to 10, take a breath, and you and Lori will be fine. Well, this therapist, who was the one who was right, he said, all right, I need to see Lori alone, and I'm going to see you too, John, alone. But Lori, you're the heart of the matter, the problem right now. What's going on in your marriage? I was like, what? It can't be.
I'm the good one.
I'm the good one. I'm always smiling. This is me, that toxic positive. This is me. This is kind of, compliance girl, like growing up. And he said, you're conflict adverse. And because of that, you have created an environment of insecurity for your husband. And I would also probably say for people who work with you at your company. Are you a manager? And I said, yes, I am. And he goes, yeah, if you're conflict adverse, they don't know what's really going on. And so we started in this time where it was therapy for me. And he said, we need to talk about college. We need to talk about what happened there. We need to talk about childhood. And I said, oh, I'm embarrassed. I said, I haven't had it as bad as I know people, and I've seen movies. And he just said, what do you think we're doing here? We are going to go into your wounds. And if we don't talk about this, you won't have that intimate relationship with yourself, which means you won't have it with your husband or your child. And that was a wake up moment for me, because I knew I wanted an intimate relationship with my husband and my son. And because of that, I agreed then that I would have one with myself. But I was third in line. And I got there because I wanted it with the ones that I loved. And we began the process of digging into my wounds. And I didn't want to go there. And I didn't think that they were worthy of going there. But they were.
Right.
And they were in the way. They were in the way. Yeah. And that happens a lot with people even just doing their own resume. We're not used to that. And we have to first go, hi, I love you. I want to take care of you. I want to take care of you, little baby Lori, little teenage Lori, little 12-year-old, little 21-year-old. I got you. I love you, and I'm not turning away.
And is that where the monarch came in?
The monarch moving here to San Diego, I had no idea that I was coming right into the little flight path, of monarchs and their whole journey from Mexico on up. And I decided when I saw a woman raising them in her backyard that I would start and see what it was all about. And I had never even seen on a video what a monarch goes through. But what I've come to realize is that they are, I think, and really for any person, whatever you're going through, your spirit animal or your symbol or whatever it's going to be for you, but for the collective humanity, for the collectiveness of what we're all going through right now, the monarch represents shedding the old. We have a lot we need to shed right now.
Yes.
Oh, woo, a lot of systems. Imagine our countries if they had been formed with women and men around the constitutional table. Interesting concept. So if we could just make it better now, we have a chance because we're young. We're growing up as people. I get it. I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying, let's just keep learning and growing. So you got to shed the old. You got to awaken the imaginal and then fly free. Most of the people that come to me for help, they want to fly. Like, I need another job. I want to make more money. I want to be happier. Just get me out there. Just get me out there. And I'm like, okay, well, first go into what brings you alive. And you know what? We can't even really know what brings you alive until we understand what you need to get rid of. What have you been holding and carrying? What is a skin that's too tight? If the monarch does not shed those skins, it won't grow into a capable caterpillar that can then go into chrysalis and have all of that nutrient body that turns into mush because the enzymes wake up and they're literally called imaginal cells. That's what the scientists call it.
Cool.
So I like to call it the imaginal self, for humans.
Works
and
for me.
Right? Isn't it? It was just so great. And so we got to go all the way back. So I've learned so very much through the monarch. And I actually have, and I'll just show you right here. I have several little precious that, never had a full life, weren't able, they came out, they looked fairly normal, but they didn't have the full life because there was something just didn't feel right. They were just a little bit weakened, but they still showed me the path to this, and they still very bravely came as far as they could. And so that showed me also, because I'm a very sensitive woman, and I always think, a life that's cut short is tragic. And what I started to realize is that a life is a life. That is a life, and it's all beautiful and it all fits. And so nature's been teaching me a lot about that, kind of the Buddhist idea too, of impermanence and just being joyful with the experiences that we have. And I do believe that nature is our greatest teacher, because it's absent of the ego, and it's very pure, for its love of
Right.
life. So pure. And
I
so
can
many.
just see anyone who comes to you they're not going to be the same at the end of the process.
Mhm. It's true.
And
Yeah.
they will have a career or something. They will have found their way into something that will actually bring them joy, right?
Yeah. And it'll bring them meaning. That first job where they go, what I teach, and I love that all of a sudden it's really silent here right now. All the noise is gone, and it
Dun-dun.
makes me want to cry for this moment of this response to your beautiful question. Is that sometimes when we're calling in to have meaning, which Viktor Frankl talks about, and he's that wonderful psychologist who lived around the Second World War, and he was Jewish, so he was kidnapped into the concentration camps,
Mhm.
and lucky for him, he lived, but his family did not. And when he came out, he recognized that the most important motivation for a human is meaning, not sexual impulse, not power, not Freud's idea, not Adler's idea of power or social status, but it was this deep-seated need for meaning. And so when you find that place that can be very connected to your ancestral story, it can be connected to deep wounding, because through that wounding, if you lean in and you find the healing, now you are really a healer in that. Sometimes I use the example of Prince Harry. He's having a very difficult time, and
Oh, yeah.
he's been excluded from his family, and he's trying to stop a process that's attacking his wife in very parallel ways, what happened to his mother. And so what is he doing? He's an advocate for mental health. And that you can go back all the way through the monarchy, through all those different generations, and all the damage that's been done in terms of real life feelings, authenticity, all that colonization. A lot of things, a lot of damage has been done to the human psyche and to human freedom through that monarchy. And he's coming forward right now with the weight of that to try to bring forward authenticity, to be who you are and not to be stuck in that and kind of ruined through that. So that process that I'm helping people is often, let's find what you're calling in, that next step, because we're going to do a biodynamic path. We'll look at 3 different job prospects at once, 3 different lines of possibility, because that meaning that aligns with the dream of the world or the heart of the world, that first step may not be the end all be all. Like when I became that recruiter and was not happy, but I had to feel and see the darkness of what I saw in the recruiting world, or the way it was kind of, status quo, traditional nature. I need to experience that so I could create something different. So it still really was ultimately the right path. But meaning is derived in such ways through experiences that you don't expect. But if you follow it, that last moment where you're deciding if you're going to say yes to a job offer, and you analyze it first with your ego, because that's the bully, it needs to be heard first. So you analyze money and, where you have to move and all of these things. And then you say, okay, ego, thank you, because I need you to survive on this planet. So thank you. I've listened. Now I'm going to go ahead and shift to heart intelligence. And it takes 2 days for the heart, which is whispers. It's the poet in the corner. It takes 2 days for the heart to be heard. So then you open up and you say, now I'm just open to the guidance. And you might find that the heart says, I don't think the job that's offering you $300,000 plus this, plus that is the one. I think we should go for the 40,000 draw, where you have to move where the sun doesn't shine. Because that's your pathway. That is your gift, and that's going to lead you to true meaning.
And it's so true that step isn't the end. Like, we always think, I've made a decision, boom, that's it. But it's not. It's just a step and a step and a step and a step, right? Which
and that's
is
exhausting.
so freeing to make those choices.
It is. And I think we have to flip that on its script a little bit for a lot of people. Like I even just said, that's exhausting. But you're right, it's freeing. I think a lot of people, they're saying, hey, I've done enough changing. I've been through enough of this, like shedding and being in the liminal space and feeling like I'm dying, or I don't know what's happening. And I'd really like it just to be pretty sustained and easy breezy. This is really scary. Every 10 years, it feels like it's still every 2 years or whatever's going on. So we have to, just like the monarch again, it has to go through that shed of that skin. And each time that it does, it's very, very vulnerable. It actually goes to a quiet place. Maybe in my case, I have these big wine barrels. So it'll crawl like on the other side of the wine barrel, it'll go over there and thinks it's out of the way, and it'll get really still. And after about 24 hours, it'll shed the skin, and then it's still again. And then it goes back to just exuberant consuming of these leaves of, the milkweed. And it's really, really vulnerable. When it's still on the side of this barrel, there's a lizard that could easily come up and just say, okay, you're pretty juicy. So it's a very vulnerable state to go through a change, but it will never fly if it doesn't go through these changes. So we can lean in through these symbolic animals, through this process of how that fear or pain of change is essential if you want to be 90 looking back and realize that you finally flew. That you did express yourself and that you lived this life to its fullest.
Right? Oh my
You got to
gosh.
have the pain. Yeah.
This is what we need in the world. More people flying.
We do.
Oh my gosh. So good.
Time for the flight.
You have such an amazing way of helping people. Like, I've never talked to someone who saw the world in this way for helping people. So
Thank you.
kudos to you, my friend. Like, this is outstanding. This is outstanding.
Thank you.
I feel like I just want you to have the last word. What is your final word of wisdom for the world who's listening? The whole world is listening.
Yes. You know what I'm going to say? The word is trust. I was thinking this morning, what's my word for the year? And I realized that trust was a really, really critical one that we're grappling with right now, because I think as women, we're told to trust everyone all the time and to have no boundaries or barriers. We're talking about animals. We can understand snakes have their little rattle. So we understand, oh, thank you for telling me I don't want to get bit, so I'll just go this way. So there's something really in the natural world to understand how nature even takes its time to trust any sort of situation or new animal or new element in its environment. And I think trust has been so diluted. And if we really want to bring it back so it's substantial, start thinking about it's okay for you to be a little bit discerning. Take your time, build that relationship, come back into trusting your own inner voice. So I would say to anybody listening right now is just ask yourself about that concept and that word. How does it reside in your life? Maybe make it a year, bringing it back into its fullness. See what it feels like.
Amazing. That's so good.
Good one.
Thank you, Lori. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for coming. And there's a lot there for everyone to digest. So don't worry, because we have all of Lori's information in the show notes so that you can go and find her and say, Lori, when you said this, what exactly did you mean? And how can you help me out of my chrysalis stage? Because I'm feeling like a big glob of goo. And right?
Right.
I'm in the imagining stage. I need some help.
Yes.
But I definitely want everyone to reach out to you and just continue that conversation, because I know that the podcasts aren't long enough to really get juicy as we could. So friends, reach out to Lori. Share this with a friend who needs this right now. 2 friends, 3 friends. It's meant everybody, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you.